Hey, hello. My name is Ken Latino, and I'm the managing director of Prelical Solutions. A lot of people ask me, Ken, what does Prelical mean? Sometimes they say Prelical or Prelical. Prelical is my name for practical reliability. So in industry, sometimes we try to implement initiatives, and sometimes they don't seem very attainable because they're just maybe too detailed or too cumbersome to, when you work in a plant, you're pretty busy. There's not a lot of extra time in your day to work on new things and new initiatives. So you got to make sure when you do things, particularly when you try to implement a reliability initiative, that it makes sense and that people can say, yeah, that's practical. So you'll hear me refer to that over and over and over again. But practical is the key. So when you hear Prelical, think Prelical, practical reliability. So, along those lines, a lot of times we hear about all these wonderful solutions, right? Reliability centered maintenance, asset performance management, IIoT, preventive maintenance, predictive maintenance, you name it. It's like an acronym soup. And these acronyms, these solutions are great. These are great tools that we all need to have in our toolbox. But the problem is we try to implement maybe just one of them, or we don't implement them in the bigger picture. We say, okay, we're going to do RCM on all of our equipment, and we're going to get those equipment strategies, or we're going to implement an operator-driven reliability program. Well, that's all great, but what we really need to do is we need to put all those in context of work processes. So that's what I'd like to talk about just briefly today is, how to take some of these concepts and put them into something that we can actually implement practically in the field. So, think about all those solutions that I just showed you. Really, I want to put them into kind of like three buckets. There's strategy, building an asset strategy, then taking that strategy and putting into the field where we can actually execute it, where we can practically execute it in the field. And then finally, how do we know the strategy is working? So we do on the tail end, we evaluate the strategy. So build an asset strategy, execute that strategy, and then on the backside, evaluate that it's actually giving us the results that we had intended. So let's dig into that just a little bit deeper. So think of this whole idea of implementing these things, all these different concepts, into a workable work process. So we start over here on the green side. That's where we actually build the asset strategy. You hear a lot of people talk about that asset strategy, and that's really where tools like FMEA and reliability centered maintenance and a host of others. There's different concepts to do that. But step one is we've got to figure out how critical are all our assets. Now I'm not suggesting you have to spend years on this, but it's really important to know which assets are highly critical, which are sort of important, and which are less or maybe insignificant, not quite as important. Okay, so if you got something that's highly critical, you got a piece of equipment that if it goes down, it could take the whole plant down. Well, that's pretty critical, right? So for those, we do want to employ tools like RCM or FMEA to really understand, what are the things that can go wrong, what are the failure modes, and what are the mitigating actions and schedules and implementation we're going to have to do to make sure that we don't have those failures and we don't experience downtime. Okay, so I don't want to get into too deep on those different philosophies. I want to talk a little bit about what's the output. The output is you need to have a material management. So out of an asset strategy, you need to have a good approach to material management. What parts should we keep in the storeroom? Do we have a good bill of materials on all our assets? How does the operator come into play here in reliability? So you start thinking of operator-driven reliability. Look, listen, and feel routes. Even better, using mobile devices out in the field to where they can go out and collect really data-rich information that we can actually take action on. Your standard preventive maintenance or time-based actions, condition-based actions, things where we're going to go out and do vibration analysis and maybe do lubal analysis or infrared. There's lots and lots of different techniques. Lubrication management. So for rotating equipment, lubrication is your life's blood, right? So we got to make sure that, we got a good approach to lubrication management. Operational procedures and processes. The operator's with the equipment most of the time. 80-90% of the time, operations is with the equipment. They're running the equipment. So how do they get involved and make sure that they're doing the right things? Are they starting the equipment properly? Are they shutting it down properly, and all that kind of thing? Finally, there's some issues around reliability of older equipment. It could be that the equipment has gotten so run down and so worn, there's no matter of inspection that we can do to make that equipment perform. So in those cases, what we need to do is we might need to ingest a little bit of capital to be able to get the equipment to the point where it can perform its intended function. And then finally, we all deal with compliance issues, whether it be the government regulations. Maybe your insurance company is providing some guidelines and recommendations, and even compliance actions that you need to do. So we got to make sure we have a good hold of what those actions are, what their schedules are, how we're going to track those, and that kind of thing. So at the end of the day, when you do an asset strategy, you're going to come out with actionable tasks related to these buckets: materials and operator tasks, condition maintenance, etc. Now, it's just an academic exercise if you don't go to the next phase, which is execute. You've got to take that plan, that strategy, and you've got to put it into your work processes. You've got to put it into your maintenance work process. Okay, a lot of times that's related to your EAM system or your maintenance management system. Getting those actions into that system so that we can, the work orders will fire when they need to, so we can track our work, we can track costs, we can track repetitive issues and that kind of thing. Operations, they don't work off of work orders, they work off of other systems, so we got to make sure whatever operational tasks need to go in, those are covered under their work process. And finally, engineering or capital work, we got to make sure we follow the work process around getting our suggested capital jobs into the budget, making sure they're properly resourced. And generally, we got to do that way ahead of time because capital budgets generally come out yearly. So if we want to do something next year, we've got to be planning it way ahead of time. Now, we're out there, we're doing the work, we're doing our inspections, we're doing the preventive tasks, the predictive tasks, and that kind of thing. Now, all that work is generating data, and it generally comes in a couple of buckets. One of them is asset health. We look at our asset health indicators and we say, hey, on this piece of equipment, we've got high vibration. We got a critical bearing that's telling us that it's got a problem. Well, we can't wait on that. That's something we've got to act on. So we've got to act on those impending failures. However, we also can look at the data a little bit more broadly and say, wow, we're having a lot of repeat failures on, say, pump 101 or reciprocating compressor number 2, right? And those are ones that become prime candidates for doing a more in-depth root cause analysis. A root cause analysis will help us uncover what the true underlying causes of the repeat failures are. And also what it does is it helps us understand where our strategy went wrong. So in a lot of cases, we go back to our strategy and we have to maybe update the frequency of inspection, or maybe there was a task we missed, or maybe there was a failure mode that we didn't originally think of when we went through our strategy that we now have to go ahead and put in there. So this altogether represents what I would call a practical approach to building a reliability process. We build a strategy. We execute that strategy in our core operating systems, maintenance, operations, and engineering. And then on the backside, we're constantly evaluating the data to make sure that we're catching failures before they actually occur. We're looking at the health of the equipment. And 2, we're looking a little more broadly at the chronic failures that are occurring, and we're getting to the true root causes, getting some corrective actions, but also, more importantly, making sure we're updating our strategies to make sure that we don't experience that failure again. Hey, if you like what you heard, my name is Ken Latino. I'm the Managing Director of Prelical Solutions. I'm going to put my telephone number at the end of this video, or check us out at our website, prelical.com, Prelical.com, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for listening.